He's going to be right by you for the next 7 weeks on television. You're going to think that he's on the first page of every leaderboard because he will be omnipresent starting this week, and of course happy hour as well. And equally as important, his program on Wednesdays here on Golf Channel, The Smylie Show. He, of course, is Smylie Kaufman. How you doing, my friend?
I'm doing great. It's quite nice, Gary, to not miss cuts and know that I'm going to be there on the weekend and be at the top of the leaderboard. So yeah, it is fun being a part of the action every single week.
Yeah, you're going to be on television every weekend, which is, I mean, what a tremendous guarantee. I'm curious, I've never asked you this. Did you watch a lot of golf on television growing up?
I did. I really did. My dad and I would always watch on Sundays. You know, we would, it would be appointment TV for us, you know, for the most part, always watching Tiger. And then at the very end, if there was a little bit of daylight left, him and I would go out and play just that late round of golf at the end of the day. And it's always the best I ever swung the golf club, hit the best shots of the year, always right after a golf telecast. So for me, I grew up watching it. Did I grow up thinking I was going to be a part of it? Absolutely not, Gary. Even when I was on the PGA Tour, I don't even think I knew where a compound was or what they did on TV. Who had the broadcast that week? And these are all things that now I can't believe I didn't know when I was on the PGA Tour.
Well, I was listening to a conversation you had with Rich Lerner, and one of the things you were talking about is that you like to prepare. You like to do it as somebody who was trying to get to the PGA Tour, which you did, and you won. And same thing you're applying to doing it now. But I'm curious, do you feel like you've learned things about the sport that maybe you weren't particularly aware of when you were playing the sport?
Yeah, I think just how I look at a golf course has changed a little bit, and maybe how I would have prepped as a PGA Tour player would have changed after having a couple years in TV of just how I look at things. But I've really fallen in love with the process, just like a PGA Tour player would with their process, getting ready every single week. And that's kind of changed, Gary. I would say over the years. At first, it was a lot of looking at the golf course, trying to be as most prepared for what I was going to anticipate the players going to be seeing that week. And sure, I do that every week, but now I think as the years have gone on, I've really leaned into looking at the data, fallen in love with looking at stats and how players are informed, what they're working on, talking to coaches, and just trying to be as knowledgeable as I possibly can when I get to the first tee that day with whoever I'm following, or if I'm in the booth. And just trying to be as up-to-date as possible. So I feel like for me, it's 24/7 golf, always watching, whether it's your program or watching the PGA Tour, even trying to catch some DP World Tour at times.
It's interesting to see the networks make these transitions to a broadcast team. It happens over time. CBS has done it. NBC's done it. There are a lot of contemporaries of yours that are still in prime years. And I think it sets up these young guys like yourself for people to look for opportunities to say, he pulled a punch there. He wasn't as critical as he could have been because he's chums or he's buddies with that guy. Have you had a moment or two where you consciously said, gosh, that was harder to say than I thought? Or has all this stuff been easy for you to just flow and say what you want to say?
It hasn't been difficult at all for me because I feel like I know what a good shot is and what a not a good shot is. And so I think that's the easiest part because I think I have such high expectations that when I see a strategy or a shot shape that I disagree with, I'm going to talk about it. And whether it's my good friend or not, whether it's Jordan or JT or Rick, the guys that I typically hung out with on the PGA Tour, have no problem calling what is good and what is not good. So luckily for me, haven't had a problem with it. I'm not to say that I won't have a problem with it at some point in my career, but so far so good, I would say.
Yeah, we were Matt Every and I, he mentioned Ludvig Åberg, and I was going to ask you about him anyway, because this is part of whether it's people who talk about the game, people like yourself who call shots and cover the game. When guys have lulls, it's not like we've dismissed them, but you temporarily kind of move on until they flash again. What is it that you are either not seeing or you want to see again? And it's not like he's gone all the way. Like he's been in the Tour Championship, his first 2 full seasons. He's in Tour Championships. He's on Ryder Cup teams. He won last year. He was right there at the Masters in his first start. But this is for him an ebb. So what do you need to see for us to feel like that incremental ascension is continuing for him?
Well, so we had Ludvig Åberg on earlier this season, and it was a great conversation. I talked to him a lot about what he's working on in his game and just really his pattern, because I noticed in a video that I took from him face on at the Tour Championship, and I studied this video for a long time because this is a guy that swings the golf club very, very fast. And from what I could tell from that video, there was a lot of sway in the backswing. And I was so excited to ask Ludvig about this. I said, is this pretty normal that you bump off the ball and you don't have a ton of hip turn? And he was like, man, I hate the look of that. So it was already something that he was working on heading into the off season, which is loading that right hip a little bit better. And when he loads it the right way, it is just, I mean, so good when he hits it nice. But the other thing he talked about too was trying to simplify the game. He felt like he had maybe too many windows that he was trying to hit and maybe too many shots that he was trying to hit the prior season, and that he was just trying to get to where the game was just a little bit more simplified. But even last season, there would be times where he was driving the golf ball really well or putting the golf ball really well. And there was other times where he was struggling with a certain aspect of his game, where this season it's been the iron game that's been an issue to start, where last season, beginning of the year, it was the short game. So there's just been inconsistencies in his game, but there's also been really high highs. He just needs to get back to what his baseline averages were, which when he came out onto the PGA Tour and he qualifies, making that Ryder Cup team for Luke Donald. Go look at his iron game heading into that Ryder Cup. It was really good. And when his iron game is really good, the rest of his game just falls in place because he drives the golf ball so good.
Spieth is not only somebody who you've got a bona fide kinship with. I know that you love, watching him, as most people do. He gave us one of the greatest rides in professional golf in this century. I went down a rabbit hole with him in 2018 and 19. Every time I was on site, I charted every shot. And it's me doing my own dime store psychoanalysis, which most people do about him. So I ask you, I look at him and I see somebody when he's in full flight, there is intuition, it's visualization and all that. But you know how belief and doubt is in this game. It's a death cage match. Belief, lands a blow and doubt goes down on the canvas, and you wonder how long you just have this flow, and then all of a sudden doubt creeps in and you're like, I'm never going to be good again. Do you think his confidence is fortified that he can be who he was? Not whatever, but do you think that he has been damaged at all? Not right now, but at any moment that he needed to reclaim that I can be that guy again?
Well, I think any PGA Tour player goes through those periods where you're dealing with doubts, and he's not the only one that's dealt with it. We all deal with it every single day. Even the best in the world, like Scottie Scheffler, he just is really good at being able to compartmentalize it. So with Jordan Spieth and what I expect to see from him is a week like last week where he played really nicely, nice Sunday, and is able to build off of rounds. And the confidence bucket for him when he sees the shots that he's trying to hit, eventually just the thinking of how to do something will just slightly go away as time goes on. And then that artistry that you talk about will, I think, become much more at the forefront. And then those amazing conversations with Michael Greller that we're so used to come out and about because he's so engaged in the process of what he's seeing. And I think the more rounds that he can get under his belt to where they're consistent, keeping those big numbers off the card, getting up and down. I think last year, one of the things that I noticed was the scrambling numbers were down. And that's something that if you look at Jordan Spieth, that is, something that he's so good at. He's such a good pitcher of the golf ball, amazing bunker player, one of the best in the world. But it's those putts that were inside 6 or 7 feet, the momentum putts, not going in. And that was the biggest issue that I saw with Jordan is the momentum putts, the scrambling, and then just trying to, just ease the technique out a little bit away to where he can just focus on golf shots and then just playing with ultimate belief, which is what I think is one of his superpowers, is that he can really lock in and believe like unlike any player that we've seen.
Yeah, and you're right about scrambling. I spent the first time I was with him was 2014. I spent a day with him, and the chipping, the short pitching. I went back to Golf Channel. I'm like, the kid's a witch. I mean, it was, and I've seen a lot of guys who do spooky, saucy stuff. It was at a level I hadn't seen before. All right, let me ask you about JT, because he does TGL the other night. And the only thing I was curious about was, I wonder what his ball speed is. And he's hitting drivers, 180, I get it. He's indoors, all that. But over the next month or so for you, what will be more constructive for you? Are they data points, or is it something else for you to see to feel like he is returning physically and everything else to what he was?
I think just the physical toll of playing a 72-hole golf tournament and walking, and he's been hitting the gym very hard with his trainer Colby Toulier and working on different aspects of his body that maybe you would neglect a little bit as a player. So he's been doing a lot of stuff, strengthening his hamstring, his glutes, and I think when you start walking 18 holes every single day, there's a physical toll that yep. takes. And I know some people laugh at that, but there is. And people don't realize how exhausting it is to go through a full week on the PGA Tour and then do that the following week and then the following week after that. And so expecting that he'll play the next 3 weeks starting at Bay Hill, just seeing physically how he looks. I'm not so concerned with the golf game with JT, because it won't take long for him to figure out, where the bottom is and just getting back into a groove of things, because he's a world-class player, always has been ever since I've known him since he was a kid. Yeah, no doubt. Last thing, you were in the blender at the Masters in 2016. The following year, you weren't in the deep end of the pool with the players, but you finished tied for 12th. I'm just curious, your experiences at the players, the mental and psychological kind of dynamics. What did the players feel like in terms of how big it was? Oh, it's one of the best events that we had. It was one that you always look forward to. I remember one year I had withdrawal from Wells Fargo the week prior. I think this is in 2016. And I show up to the players and I said, I don't care how hurt my wrist is, I'm going to play. It's the first time I've ever taken medicine to help me to try to not feel something. And so I took that morning, showed up to the Players Championship with a bum wrist on every single tee. I would stick my hand into the ice bucket where the waters were being kept to try to just get any type of relief. And luckily for me, with the medicine and then just having a numb wrist from the ice, I was leading the golf tournament through the first 7 holes, starting on the back. But unfortunately, it got through the 17th hole. I think I made triple on 18, and I think I was 4 under through 7 or 8 holes. And I'm shooting like 1 or 2 over, MC hammer, and then it kind of wore off, that medicine. But I'll say that this Players Championship, I'm not in love with it in March. I think it's better in May. I think it requires more thought, more artistry in May. I think you talk to most players, they would tend to agree with that. I just remembered all the types of shots that I had to hit off the tee in May with how firm it was. Now it's just, there's a lot of drivers. There used to be more, like for instance, that 4th hole when you had Bermuda rough on that left side. Now the rough is always an issue on the 4th hole, even today, how thick it gets. But when it was Bermuda and you missed that fairway to the left, it was an auto layup. You couldn't hold the green because of the firmness of the greens. I was hitting 4 iron off that tee. I was putting in the back of the stance, hitting this low cut to try to find the fairway. And I just don't think you have much of that anymore out at the Players Championship. It's much more drivers, because when it's overseeded wall to wall, it's just like, why not? Let's just get it up there as far as we can. Have a great 7-week stretch. Take a 10-minute break. Your show coming up at the top of the hour. Always good chatting. Thanks so much. Appreciate it, Gary.